My daughter kicked me out after her wedding. Now she's begging me to save her marriage. I am a 55-year-old woman, and the worst humiliation of my life happened the night my only daughter asked the venue's security to escort me out of her wedding. I walked past tables set with candles I had helped pay for, past guests I'd cooked for when they were still classmates coming over to study, past a band I'd booked with a deposit from my overtime shifts, and I felt people's eyes slide off me like I was a stain you pretend you didn't see. Outside, the rain had started, and by the time I reached the curb, it was pounding so hard it turned the confetti on the pavement into a paste. It didn't start that night. It started the week my daughter, Lily, got engaged to Ethan. I raised Lily alone after her father left when she was 8. She was bright and stubborn and used to hearing me say that love is not supposed to make you small. When Ethan arrived, he was charming in a way that reads as safety to young women who want to rest from worrying. He opened doors, sent flowers to her office, and remembered the names of people who didn't matter to him. He had a mother, Margot, who spoke softly and made everything sound reasonable. She also asked questions that were really instructions. The first time we met, she complimented my dress, and then wondered out loud if brighter colors might be a little loud in photos. In the months between the engagement and the wedding, small lines were crossed and redrawn without anyone admitting it. I offered to pay for the florist and the band. Margot accepted with gratitude and then chose everything herself. I tried to keep my mouth shut because I didn't want Lily to feel pulled. The seating chart became a battleground I didn't know we were fighting. Margot said tradition required the groom's family to sit prominently. I noticed she had moved my late mother's sister to the back and replaced her with a couple I had never met. When I asked who they were, Margot said they were important clients who had watched Ethan grow into the man he is. 2 weeks before the wedding, I started receiving anonymous screenshots. They were from a number I didn't recognize. The messages claimed to be from my phone to Lily, lines that sounded like a mother sabotaging her child's big day. They said the groom's family was cheap, that the ring looked small, that I had reservations about the marriage. The grammar wasn't mine. The capitalization looked like someone copying a style they thought was casual. I showed the police the first time because I was afraid someone had cloned my SIM. They shrugged and told me to call my carrier. The carrier told me to change my password and remember that screenshots can be edited. I told Lily everything. She believed me in the way you believe someone you love when the truth is inconvenient. She nodded, squeezed my hand, and asked me not to add stress. Then there was the cake. I had booked a baker Lily adored. 2 days later, the baker called to confirm a cancellation I hadn't made. When I called back, the slot was gone. Margot told me calmly that she'd found someone more aligned with the theme. The new invoice was twice the price. She told me not to worry about it. The groom's side would cover the excess. She said it like a favor performed in front of a witness. On the morning of the wedding, I arrived early with a steamer and a small sewing kit. I had done this for a dozen cousins. It is what mothers do. The bridal suite buzzed. Lily looked beautiful and frightened. Her makeup artist worked in the light by the window. Margot walked in with a garment bag and a smile so bright it flashed. She mentioned casually that she had spoken to the photographer about angles that flatter. She said she had asked them to minimize visual distractions. I didn't understand until I saw the shot list. Lots of bride and groom, lots of groom with mother, one of bride with mother only if time allowed. I told myself the list didn't matter. You can't list love. An hour before the ceremony, the venue coordinator asked me to step into the hallway. She looked apologetic. She said there had been concerns about disruptive behavior. She said the staff had been told I might try to switch the seating or interfere with the vows. I laughed because sometimes laughter is the only thing that keeps you from making a scene. Then I realized she wasn't joking. She showed me a printed email supposedly from my address listing changes I had demanded. The address was mine, but the signature block wasn't. It included a title I didn't have and a phone number I had never used. I told the coordinator it was a fake. She said she believed me. She also said she had to follow the instructions she had. I watched my daughter walk down the aisle on her uncle's arm because the plan had changed, and no one told me. I clapped. I cried. I repeated the words the officiant asked us to. I pretended not to see Margot place herself just inside every frame. At the reception, I sat at a table 2 rows back. When the speeches began, Ethan thanked his rock, his mother, who had held this day together. He thanked me last and said I had come around to the marriage, the way you say someone has finally agreed to the terms of their environment. People laughed. I smiled because I have always chosen my daughter over my pride. Then the rumor hit the room like wind. A bridesmaid leaned to the groom and whispered. He whispered to Margot. Margot whispered to Lily. The DJ turned the music down, then up, then down, waiting for a cue that wasn't coming. The venue manager marched over with a face like a summons. He said someone had told security I was drunk and trying to move place cards. I don't drink. I held up my glass of water like proof. Margot came to my elbow and suggested gently that I take a breath outside. Lily arrived flushed and furious, saying the staff had shown her messages from my number, telling them to fix the family optics. I said it wasn't me. She said she couldn't deal with this right now. She said, in a voice full of strangers' opinions, that if I loved her, I would leave. The sentence was an axe. A guard took my elbow and led me past a cluster of guests who pretended to adjust their clothes. My coat was in the bridal suite. No one offered to fetch it. Outside, the rain soaked me to the skin in 30 seconds. I sat in my car and shook. I didn't drive. I waited for the phone to ring with an apology or an explanation. It didn't. At midnight, a picture from the reception appeared online. Ethan holding a microphone. Margot laughing at his shoulder. Lily looking like she was trying to remember how to move her face. The caption said, "Family is everything." The next morning, I woke to find the fallout had already started to harden. A cousin texted to say she hoped I was okay after my episode. A neighbor asked if the stress had gotten to me. My sister sent a neutral message suggesting that perception is reality at events like that. I went to the carrier in person, spoke to a manager, changed everything that could be changed, and filed another report no one wanted. The store clerk told me she'd seen this before. People faking screenshots, people creating spoofed addresses, people deciding the story they prefer and then generating data to fit it. I wrote Lily a long email. I told her I loved her more than any day on a calendar. I told her I believed she was under pressure and that sometimes pressure makes you pick the wrong team. I told her I was stepping back until she wanted me without someone else's finger on the scale. I didn't send it for 2 days. When I finally hit send, it bounced. She had blocked me. I learned this because my voicemail greeting played back my own voice after her phone refused my call. For 2 weeks, the house was so quiet, it made me dizzy. I kept replaying the moments that could have bent another way. The time I told Margot that we could split costs and she said no, then referred to me as gracious, in a tone that made gracious sound like poor. The afternoon, I found Lily's rehearsal dinner dress, wrinkled in a corner because someone had convinced her the new one looked more polished. The night Lily called to say Ethan's colleague had booked them a fancy restaurant and she sounded like she was already living in a world where I was an accessory that didn't match, then, on a Tuesday at 1:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lily. No preface, no apology. 3 sentences. "Mom, are you awake? I made a mistake. I need help." She came to my house an hour later wearing a hoodie and a look I recognized from childhood. The one she wore when the truth finally outran the comfort of her fiction. She said she couldn't talk on the phone because Ethan checked the logs. She said Margot had a key. She said the apartment didn't feel like hers. She told me she had found a hidden folder on Ethan's laptop with a copy of a prenuptial agreement she had signed for simplicity, plus a side letter she hadn't seen. The side letter assigned all gifts and family contributions to the groom's estate in case of separation within 2 years. My florist deposit, my band deposit, the checks I wrote for the venue, they had become a legal argument that I had funded her wedding as a gift to Ethan's family. Lily had also found emails between Ethan and the venue manager from the week before the wedding, instructing staff to handle any disruptions, from the mother diplomatically, and de-escalate with a temporary removal if necessary. There were messages from Margot about narrative management, about ensuring that any sentimentality from the mother would be framed as stress. There was a screenshot of a text thread between Margot and someone saved as PA Studio, which included drafts of the very messages that had appeared from my number, complete with typos added to make them sound like a flustered parent. I listened without interrupting, because I knew that if I spoke before she finished, I would say something about choosing men who cut you away from your people. Lily said that Ethan called it protecting the day and accused her of ingratitude when she pushed back. She said he had put her on an allowance to help us build habits that he had asked her to, transfer part of the cash gifts to an account with better interest, and that the account turned out to be Margot's family fund. She said she had discovered a calendar invite labeled with initials she didn't recognize, attached to a restaurant reservation for 2. She didn't need to list what people talk about over rooms for 2. When she finished, she sat in my kitchen and cried the kind of tears people don't make noise with. She said she didn't know how to undo a wedding without setting her life on fire. She said she understood now that the wedding had been about ownership, not love. She said she was ashamed she had believed that the quickest way to a quiet life was to comply. Then she asked me the question that made my heart lurch. Would I help her leave? I made her eggs and toast because the body needs things even when the heart is falling through a trap door. I told her she was coming home for a few days. I told her we would take it one action at a time. I told her we would speak to someone who knew how to read papers the way doctors read scans. I didn't tell her that I had saved every receipt with her initials on it. I didn't tell her that I had a folder of screenshots that I had never believed I would need against my own child's in-laws. I didn't tell her that the rhythm of my heart, which had been off since the night of the wedding, had suddenly steadied because a terrible thing had finally been named. By dawn, we had a plan that didn't feel like a plan yet. Gather documents, move irreplaceable personal items, freeze the joint account if she could, and find a lawyer by noon. I told her to shower and sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my own folder, and began arranging a spine for the story someone else had tried to bend. I didn't know then how many rooms we would have to walk into where people would speak softly while doing violence with stationery. I didn't know whether my daughter's marriage was a fortress we would have to lay siege to, or a facade that would collapse if you pulled the right thread. I only knew the first thread to tug. Lily slept until 10. While the kettle boiled, I called a family lawyer recommended by a neighbor who had survived a divorce with a corporate husband who hid assets in projects. The lawyer, Anna, had the kind of voice you want around panic. She told us to bring every document we could: prenuptial agreement, side letter, bank statements, emails, screenshots, receipts, even the florist's cancellation. She said that in cases like this, pattern mattered more than any single outrage. In Anna's office, Lily spoke with new discipline. She described the wedding night incident like a report: the security escort, the printed emails, the seating sabotage. She explained the allowance and the family fund. She handed over the side letter, worded in a way designed to sound generous while making her a debtor to a story she hadn't written. Anna underlined sentences without commenting. Then Lily mentioned the calendar invite for 2, the late dinners, the locked phone. She didn't use the word affair. She didn't have to. Anna set down her pen and said the word that changes everything in rooms like that: coercion. Coercion isn't always screaming. Sometimes it's a long list of reasonable-sounding requests that leave you with no oxygen. The plan had 3 tracks. The first was practical: secure Lily's personal identification, move sentimental items, and transfer her salary to a new account. The second was legal: file for separation with a request to invalidate the side letter on the grounds of concealment and duress, issue preservation letters to the venue, the caterer, and the band demanding they retain emails and logs, send a cease and desist regarding further impersonation from my address. The third was narrative: tell a small circle of people the truth before someone else told it with adjectives we couldn't control. We drove to Lily's place at noon because Margot usually visited in the mornings. Lily walked in with the quiet boldness of someone who knows the version of herself she must carry out. She packed photographs, a few dresses, her grandmother's ring, the journals she had kept since high school. In the study, she found a file she had not seen in the desk drawer labeled tax. Inside were invoices from her florist and the band, reissued in the groom's company's name, showing corporate hospitality. My stomach turned. Someone had used the wedding not just as an instrument of control, but as a business expense. We left with 2 suitcases and a tremor in the hand that turned the key in the lock. At home, Lily called her boss and asked to switch to remote for a week. We turned off location sharing on her phone. We ate soup because chewing felt like too much. At 3, Anna called. The court had granted a temporary order preventing the transfer of marital funds and requiring both parties to preserve digital communications. She advised Lily to expect a storm. The storm arrived in the shape of Margot at my door. She didn't knock like a person. She entered like a policy. She spoke softly but used words like contracts. She said divorce was ugly and unnecessary. She said Lily had been emotional. She said Ethan loved her. She said we shouldn't make a private matter public. She used the phrase family optics 3 times. When Lily told her about the side letter, Margot said all couples had documents for clarity. When Lily mentioned the venue emails, Margot said proactive planning is not manipulation. When I said we would not discuss this without counsel, she looked at me the way people look at furniture they intend to replace. She left without raising her voice. I closed the door and realized my hands were shaking harder than they had outside the wedding. Evidence began to arrive because in modern life, nothing happens without a trail. The venue coordinator, shaken by the idea of becoming a witness, emailed Anna a stack of messages received from me and from Margot. The coordinator's staff had flagged the me address as inconsistent with my earlier emails, different signature, different punctuation patterns. There were also instructions from Ethan ordering staff to redirect all vendor, questions to his mother, to reduce bride, stress. The band manager sent over a note from Ethan's company asking for an invoice, as discussed, for Q3 hospitality. The florist sent a message showing a cancellation that came from Margot's email, followed by a new order from the groom's corporate account. For narrative, we did something I never thought I would do. We invited a small group to my living room. My sister, Lily's aunt, my cousin who had judged me silently at the reception, our old neighbor, Helen, who still had her doorbell camera clips, and Lily's best friend, Nora, who had distanced herself during the engagement because she didn't know her place. Lily told the story without embroidery. We showed screenshots redacted for private details. We showed the side letter. There was an audible intake of breath. People don't apologize for the assumptions they made. They adjust their eyes to the new light. It was enough. That night, Ethan texted Lily for the first time since she left. He didn't ask where she was. He sent a numbered list. He said she was overreacting, that the side letter was normal for families, that build wealth together, that the allowance had been a temporary budgeting tool, that the emails had been necessary to keep me from derailing the mood, that he had caught wind I was unstable. He wrote that if she came home without lawyers and dramatics, they could reset. He used phrases like operational calm and strategic path, the way men do when they want to make abuse sound like management. He did not mention the calendar invites for 2. He did not mention love. Anna advised no reply except to confirm receipt and to state that all communications should go through counsel. Lily followed the advice and then cried into a dish towel because the body needs something to hold when words refuse to help. I sat beside her and thought about the day she was born, about the way I had placed my hand on her back and felt, through skin and bone and time, the privilege of being the person who was allowed to steady another human. The next blow came from an angle we hadn't covered. A post appeared on a local forum, anonymous but pointed, implying that I had ruined a wedding out of jealousy and that I had turned my daughter against her husband. The details were too accurate to be random. People read and decided. Strangers are quick judges because the verdict costs them nothing. I didn't respond. Helen did. She posted the clip from the night of the wedding showing me sipping water and standing at my assigned table while staff whispered to Ethan and Margot. She didn't add a caption. She let the silence carry the meaning. The post gathered comments of the kind that show a town recalculating its gossip. The internal work crisis we expected hit Ethan. Someone in his company, tired of terms like hospitality covering private indulgences, leaked invoices to a reporter who writes about corporate ethics. I didn't send them. I didn't have them. But I recognized the florist's logo in the journalist's article about weddings as write-offs. Ethan's employer announced an external review. Margot called me, finally breaking the soft voice. She accused me of orchestrating a smear. I told her I had enough to do keeping my daughter from dissolving to also run a media campaign. She hung up with a threat dressed as a promise. You will regret dragging this into the light. In the middle of this, Lily asked a question I wasn't ready for. She said she had looked again at the calendar invites and found a name attached to one of the initials. It wasn't a woman. It was Ethan's father's accountant. The dinners hadn't been all romance. Some had been planning. The family fund had a purpose: to plug holes in a business with more image than liquidity. Lily realized she had been an asset acquisition, her wedding a public relations event, her bank account a mop. There is a particular quiet that follows such realizations. We sat in it. Anna filed a motion requesting the court to freeze the family fund account and to compel disclosure of all transfers that touched wedding gifts. The judge granted it on a temporary basis. Ethan's lawyer called to propose a meeting to resolve matters privately. Anna nodded at the phone like it was predictable weather. She told us to accept, but to bring one non-negotiable: a neutral arbiter at the venue with access to the email server and logs. If Ethan wanted privacy, he could have quiet accountability. The meeting took place on a Wednesday in a neutral conference room that smelled like coffee and previous arguments. Ethan arrived with Margot and a lawyer who smiled without his eyes. Anna sat straight-backed with a folder she barely opened. The venue's IT manager joined by video and shared her screen. We watched the log of messages. We watched the timestamps. We watched the IP addresses. The Me emails came from a device that had also sent messages from Margot's account within 5 minutes on 3 occasions. The venue manager confirmed the staff had been told, in person by Ethan, to watch the mother. Margot said it was for safety. The IT manager said no safety report had been filed. The word fabrication hovered between us. Then the accountant's emails rolled into view. They referenced offsetting hospitality against Q3, a bundle of invoices including the band and the florist. Ethan's lawyer shifted in his chair and said this was industry practice. The venue manager raised an eyebrow so high it could have been a bridge. Anna didn't raise hers at all. She asked for a written admission that my deposits would be reimbursed to me directly and excluded from any equitable distribution. Ethan's lawyer asked for a recess. When they returned, he offered a draft that was almost what we needed. Anna held out for all of it. She got it. There was one last file to open. Security footage from the night of the wedding showing the moment I was disruptive. The video, requested by Anna under the preservation order, showed me standing still with a glass of water while a staff member approached. It also showed Margot observing from the edge of the room, then nodding to security. There was no audio, only the choreography of a decision. Ethan stared at the screen, the way men stare at a ruined spreadsheet. Lily watched her husband watch the evidence of a story he had insisted was true. I saw a girl trying to reconcile the life she wanted with the life she had. At the end of the meeting, Ethan's lawyer asked if we wanted amicable terms. Anna said we did. Amicable does not mean forgiving. It means refusing to bleed more than necessary. The draft agreement included reimbursement of my deposits, the return of cash gifts to a neutral escrow until distribution was agreed, and a clause voiding the side letter. It also included a line Lily needed: acknowledgement that communications had misrepresented my actions, and that those communications would be retracted in writing to the venue and vendors. Margot signed last, pressing the pen so hard the nib left an impression on the page below. The legal part moved faster after that because shame speeds men who fear headlines. The personal part didn't move at all. It cracked and left edges. Lily stayed with me. She slept in her old room like a time traveler who had lost her map. Sometimes she woke in the night and walked through the house touching doorknobs, as if checking that the world still opened. Ethan sent messages through his lawyer only, about furniture and schedules and storage keys. He did not say he was sorry. People like him think remorse is a public relations department. When the court issued the separation order, Lily cried in a way that sounded more like gravity than sorrow. We went to the venue together with a small bouquet and left it by the hedge where the confetti had turned to paste. We stood there for a minute in the late afternoon light and let the air move around us. She thanked me for helping her see, for believing her late. I told her believing late is still believing. Then she asked me for something I didn't expect. She said she wanted me to write a short statement to the family, hers and his, saying that I would not be part of any campaign to ruin anyone, that we would let the law and time do their work. I wrote it that evening in plain words, signed my name, and felt the small dignity of choosing how I would show up in a story that had tried to use me as a prop. The social part never fully healed. Some people still look at me in the grocery store as if I am the headline they half remember. Others stop me to say they always knew something was off, which is a kindness that asks for no proof, because it is delivered too late to be useful. Margot crossed the street once when she saw me coming. She kept her eyes on a shop window like she was admiring a dress neither of us could afford. Ethan left his company to pursue opportunities. I learned this from an article that didn't mention hospitality or bands. Lily started therapy. She went back to work. She brought home a plant she is keeping alive on purpose. Sometimes we sit on the couch and watch terrible shows that require nothing of us. Sometimes I catch her staring at the wall with a look that means she is replaying the edit someone else made of her life, and learning to trust the director in her own head again. I don't say anything when that happens. I make tea and place it near her hand. People ask if I forgave her for the wedding. Forgiveness is a word that looks clean on paper and feels like sand in the mouth when you try to speak it before you're ready. I chose something quieter. I decided to act like a mother without pretending not to be hurt. That looks like taking calls, signing forms, sitting in waiting rooms, sending recipes, reminding her to drink water, and also telling her, when she apologizes for the 1,000th time, that apologies spend better as boundaries. Every few weeks, Lily asks if I think she should meet Ethan to close the loop. I tell her closure is a door people are always trying to sell you a key to. Most of the time, you walk away and the door becomes a wall with a view, and then the view changes. She nods like she believes me, and then sometimes goes very quiet. I let the quiet live. Not every space needs to be filled with advice. On the anniversary of the wedding that wasn't, we drove past the venue and kept going until the road turned to fields. We stopped at a farm stand and bought peaches so ripe they bruised when you looked at them. We ate them leaning over the grass, juice running down our wrists, and for a minute, there was no law, no venue, no side letter, no family optics, no accountant, no calendar invitations for two. There was just the sweetness of a thing you didn't plan for. That proves your mouth still remembers pleasure. I don't know if my daughter will remarry. I don't know if I will ever be in a room again where someone else's mother decides who is visible. I know the feeling of the rain on the night I walked out of that reception, and the feeling of the sun on my hand the afternoon we signed the last paper. I know that love that doesn't make you small is still possible because I practice it on myself, now with the same stubbornness I used to reserve for other people. Lily sometimes says she is begging me to save her marriage. I tell her that's not what I did. I saved her from a story that started with a wedding and was going to end with an invoice. I don't know if that counts as a happy ending. On most days it feels like a true one. On the others, when the hurt lifts like it has springs, I stand at the sink and breathe slowly and remind myself, we chose the light. Even when it shows you dust, it's still the light.
Follow me for more stories.